Can't quite hear anything yet.
Can you hear me, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. Great. Thanks.
We can't hear you, though.
I could hear you fine. Thanks, you, Council Chambers.
Can you hear me okay?
Oops.
Are you able to hear me? Mark, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, Jeff. Thank you. Are you hearing me, Jeff?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay.
Just wondering if they can hear me in the council there.
Council meeting notes are, I think the microphone's kind of different there too.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff, did you recall getting an agenda? You muted back to me.
No, I couldn't find it either.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So we'll just ask if they could post one or share. I gather that from the notes in the meeting, it states things like a progress update on the Colwood
Yeah,
dairy.
maybe that's it.
Perhaps
We can hear you now, just so you know.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you. And we can hear you.
We've waited a few minutes, so we can hear everybody. So I guess we'll call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I have a mover, Misty, seconder, Jenny. Is there any discussion or changes to the agenda?
You overheard Jeff and I's conversation. We didn't actually seem to get one, so we didn't ever see one. So
All in favor? The agenda was sent out, Mark. Do you not have it?
I'm not available to me right now, but I will,
Oh,
I
yeah.
will,
Yeah, I can
Um,
report too, yeah.
Um,
It's separate email there, Mark.
okay, all right, I'll go look for it.
sorry, I missed, all in favor of the agenda? Approved. Adoption of the minutes from the Special Heritage Committee meeting, on September 28th, 2023. Can I have a mover? Jenny, seconder, Misty. Any, comments, changes? Discussion? All in favor of the adoption of the minutes? Approved. Public participation. I don't know that we have any public participation, so we can move on from that. We usually do a short activity report for members of things that happening in their world that relate to heritage. Does anybody have a report that they would like to make of interest to the commission?
Just a sidebar, I guess, for reference for some of the members of the Heritage Commission. The Colwood Parks Department has engaged in some restoration work of what we term to be heritage trees down in Pitt Meadow Park, or Pitt Park rather, Pitt Farm Park, I think it is, down in the lagoon area. I know that in our previous conversations around how heritage would be defined, it's one of the things we did talk about was something about certain trees being heritage based, but there's a particular orchard that's going to be potentially restored. So I thought I'd share that with the rest of the Heritage Committee.
Thank you, Mark.
Mhm.
Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At Row Roads, we are going through a process called Reimagining Hatley Castle. And we're going to look at ways to open up public access to the building itself. And so we'll be looking for public input in a process that will take place starting in a few months' time, I think. And so we'll be able to report back to the council as to what we're doing, because it is a hub in the community, and there's a lot of recognition of the links that people have with the castle and the grounds. So there's a movement to open it up and provide greater access to it.
Thanks, Jeff. Anybody else? No. Is there any? Oh, so now we're moving on to new business. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't do the territorial acknowledgement at the beginning of the agenda, and I apologize for that. Before we go any further, we acknowledge with respect that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen speaking people. And we are honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees. And I'm sorry, I don't know. Cossapson.
That's the traditional name of the Esquimalt Nation.
Okay. Thank you. And again, I apologize for missing that. I have chaired one of these meetings before. Now we're on to new business. And we have John Dam, who's the principal of John Dam Associates, who's the heritage consultant for progress update on the conservation of the Colwood Dairy and Cheese House.
Sign on. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, councillors, commission members, and staff. I'm happy to take you through a little walkthrough of where we're at with the conservation of the Colwood Dairy, pretty much from the beginning. I have a few slides to show, and I'll just point when I need them. How do I do that? Oh, I got this thing right here. Oh, there it is. Excellent. So just way back to the beginning, this is a condition of the Colwood Dairy and Cheese House when I first came on board. So it had some torn up tarps on it and sort of locked up, not really. The interior space, people had gotten into it. It was in interesting condition, but certainly not in pristine condition. It had seen better times. The first thing that Jim, the development team, set about doing was excavating the perimeter to expose the foundation. At which point we were requested to better protect it and fix those tarps, which was our next step. So we're basically preparing this this building for its move. So the first step following the perimeter excavation was to salvage the floor. The floor had to get removed from the building so that the interior structural works could start to be installed. So we carefully lifted up the floor bricks as best as we could and stored them on pallets as per the archaeologist's report. As you can notice, a lot of these bricks were in very poor condition. Literally, you pick them up and they fell apart. So moving the entirety of the brick floor was impossible. But I would say we salvaged a good portion of it, and certainly enough to recreate the floor in the new location. Here's a slide where it's further advanced. All the bricks were put on pallets and they were protected with plastic wrap. And the next step was to lift the roof off the this building. The roof was not original to the building. It was installed in the 60s, 50s, 60s, around there. So it's certainly just a contemporary roof. So that was lifted off and set to the side. And then the interior floor on pallets was moved and protected underneath this roof structure. Once the floor was removed, we started to do a bit of archaeological excavation, one might say, to expose the foundations of the interior floor structure that we suspect held interior features, be it perimeter benches. We're not entirely sure, but we certainly felt it was important to document this process. That's okay. So once the floor was at this point, the team moved to preparing the new location for the new foundation of the building. This would be a bit closer to Goldstream Avenue, a bit closer to the southwest corner of the property. So we started excavating, and pretty early on, Jim's team found archaeological remains on site here. And I have to put a plug for Jim's team here. We were called immediately. And they asked us to get to site right away and help them out, which the archaeologist was incredibly surprised. That never happens, he says. So this is a really good opportunity for us. And we worked with the team. Essentially, what it looked like, we found, you can sort of see in this picture, there's a series of pits that run from the middle bottom to the upper right. The archaeologist suspects that these were I forget the technical term, but little dumps for the kitchen waste, because it was right outside the original house and kind of leading away from the house that we found these pits. And it was a series of pits, and there's a lot of broken debris, mostly broken debris, broken plates. And the next slide shows this is typical of what we are finding. We probably got about 4 to 6 Rubbermaid bins full of this material. Mostly in this condition, but I've got a couple slides here of some interesting pieces we dug up. So, and then some interesting bottles. The archaeologist has looked at these. He's found some interesting markings in some of these bottles. So he was pretty excited. This is a genuinely interesting find. But we excavated what we needed to get the foundation in place. But we know that there's more. We didn't need to excavate more, but you can see kind of in the middle of this picture, this trail of debris tapers off. Well, it just continues underground off the location where the new foundation is going to go. So the archaeologist recommended at this time that we just keep it there. We know where it is, and it's now on Colwood's property, the park that Jim has set aside. So these finds are all on that property. So essentially, they can be preserved for a time that Colwood finds it more convenient to continue exploring and seeing what can be found. That's the archaeological element of what we found. So we'll go back to the building now. The next step with the building, with the roof gone, is Jim's team set about protecting it. We got a temporary tent in place and put it over the building so we can continue our works. And that required installing hundreds of these bolts around the foundation underneath it. We needed to separate the building walls, which were mortared in place, from the foundation walls, which were just rubble stone. So that's the line that they followed around the building, and they inserted these bolts and fastened them on either side with these steel angles. Here's another photo of the bolts going through underneath the foundation. And then you can see on the inside where they started putting in the vertical struts and the plywood to protect the walls. You know, hold the walls together, but also protect them from any damage. This slide shows where the archaeological excavation took place, but now the new footing was poured and placed in preparation for the placement of the new dairy building. And right here, I'd love to turn it over to our tech team to show us the process of the move. And here you can see the building is essentially two halves. There's a doorway on each side that kind of split the walls into two halves. So they're lifting up the west wall of the building. And we can watch this as long as you're interested. It's about 5 minutes to do the move, but if this is interesting to watch, certainly can. That's quite the job, Jim. You had a good team. Oh, we were. Yeah.
And we were otherwise satisfied.
Yes, as Jim mentioned, it's impossible to see, but the walls are inside that cage.
How many days did the project take in total?
From excavating the floor to moving the building took, say, about 2 months. Yeah, about 2 to 3 months.
And is this location has been put to its final location?
Yeah, this is its final location. And we can stop the movie right now because now it takes, I think it took you guys a couple hours to actually get the building into position.
To set it up over.
Yeah.
the New foundation.
Yeah, yeah. So right now, from that point forward, it would just be a vertical drop down onto its blocking where it sits today. So I'll go back to the slideshow. So this shows the original location with half the building removed. You can see the original rubble stone foundation still there, and the other half waiting to be picked up and moved. That happened the next day. So this was a 2-day process. It took a day to move each piece. And this shows the second piece being placed in the new location. This happened December 1st. So the original piece was moved November 30th of last year, and this is December 1st of last year. And Jim's team reset up the protective cover over the new location. And this, I believe, is exactly the way it sits to today. I don't think anything happened, so. Yeah, just letting everyone know here that there was certainly a bit of trepidation when we first talked about moving this building, but I can honestly say objectively that Jim has done a fantastic job, both from the archaeological perspective and actually moving this building as directed. I don't think there was a single hiccup other than timing. Maybe that was a bit of a challenge, but all the details, I can see Jim's done a great job with relocating this building for this development. And that ends my talk. Is there any questions? Yeah.
What is the plan with the So what is the plan with the bricks that you salvage for the floor? Are they going in under your direction, or is Jim taking care of that? How is that happening?
I believe they're going in under my direction. Yeah, no, Jim and I are working together in this. I've produced the heritage conservation plan for the building. I have ideas throughout the entire conservation project, but I'll be sharing them with Jim and his team, and we'll be working together. But the bricks, it is intended to recreate at the very least, the pattern in the floor that originally had. We have to determine in concert with staff if we're going to have public access into this building, to what extent we're going to open this building up, and how we're going to make it so that it's original but safe. And this goes for every element. We're going to try to recreate what we believe to be the original roof, the original windows, and then through that process decide how to present this building. That hasn't been finalized yet.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just thought I'd note that the city has a section 219 covenant on the title of this property that requires the heritage conservation plan to be in place, approved by the city, and then there's oversight by city administration to make sure that the plan is being carried out as approved. As Mr. Dam noted, the intention is that this building is constructed for a future use as an interpretive space. The brick floor was identified in the statement of significance that's attached to the presentation as an integral part of the structure, insofar as it represented some of the earliest known bricks created here for a building. And it was also part of the cooling system that was an important part of the structure.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Iain. Are there any more questions?
Madam Chair, maybe just an observation, from a layman's perspective, it just seemed like there was a lot of care and attention taken here, and certainly appreciated. And so, from my position, I just say, thanks for that. It's just a real new opportunity in Colwood to see that kind of care and attention placed on a heritage building. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Jeff. Jenny, did you have a question?
Yeah, just to echo what Jeff said there, it's really exciting to see this happening and happening so well. Just because I'm fascinated by the project, and you mentioned putting on the original roof or recreating it. Are you going by that 1920s picture that we saw in the meeting documents from the BC archives, or is there other information that indicates what the roof would have looked like?
Our intention, so the only photographs I know of the building are the outside building, so we're certainly going to use that and reinstate the wood shingle. But for the inside structure, we've actually gone through the process of documenting what was put on Todd House in Oak Bay, being that that building was built just 1 year previous to this building, I believe. So we're going to be using those timber framing details and translating them onto this new dairy building.
Any more questions for Mr. Dam while he's here? Okay.
What's the schedule for completion?
I'm gonna leave that to Jim.
I'll speak to it when you finish.
Sure. We're waiting to start going again. And I think from a conservation technical perspective, I'd say the roof, a couple months. You know, I would say a few months for roof, few months for the walls and windows. So we certainly have a little bit of work left to do.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll speak to it when you finish up.
Okay.
I don't think there's any further questions. Thank you very much.
Good. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, members of council, members of committee. And my friend George, I don't know if anybody knows him, but he's sort of a little younger than me, but we're both part of the Heritage Committee that we're working with, and we both have gray hair. So we have a challenge here, and it has been a challenge to work on this building. I just like to say my grandmother used to ride her horse out there to buy cheese. And I have a certain interest in it myself. And that goes back a long time ago too. My grandmother was born in 1868, I think. So just about the time of this building was being built. But so there's a lot of history there that I'm looking forward to. I enjoy what we're doing with it. We've taken the care to do what we should be doing with it to make it work. We have a lot more work to do, and we're waiting to get onto the site again. In this day and age, it's a little difficult because you got your neighbors worrying about the trees you're cutting down, and you got somebody worrying about what you're doing with moving the building, and we're doing our best to make it happen. And it has been a challenge, as I've said. John Dam has done a great job in helping us look after it. So I think our next phase is I'm expecting a building permit. Well, we have a building permit to move the building. So that was issued first. But our main thrust now is to get the building started. I think the building is going to be a great building for Colwood. We have in total about 200 units in the project in total. So I'm just saying to everybody, don't worry about mixing the old with the new, because the new is here. It's just a narrow time, but we're all working to. The dairy building was put up 150 years ago. We're putting a new building into the site. So we have to mix the old with the new, and that's going to could be a continuum for time that goes on. So we can't do anything about that. But so what we're doing right now, we've moved the building into its place. We have the foundations, we just gotta lower it down onto we only got about 4 inches to go with lowering it. And we're lowering that into a grout situation so we can meld everything together. And then we're waiting for the meetings like this so the committee can give us some direction of what we have to do. It took John 4 months to get into the Todd building. The Todd building was built in the same year this dairy building was built. And we were trying to get the design for the roof. And he now has a couple of designs that he gave me today. So that's how it just takes time to get all these issues together so we can make it like it was, is what we're trying to do. And it's going to take a little bit of input from everybody to try to figure out how it's all going to be in the end. And we know what it looks, we basically know what it looks like, but the roof structure, John gave me that detail today. So I'll get that going right away. I would like to get the roof covered, take the tent off it, and have it exposed so people can see what we're doing. And as I was interested to hear that what they're doing with Royal Roads. My father, for instance, I think it was about 1949, he went out there he was a shipwright builder in the Navy, and he went out as a shipwright constructor at Royal Roads. And I have a lot of history to Royal Roads too, in my hearts, and in doing something, whatever we can do there. He built, anybody knows anything about Royal Roads, there was a Japanese garden with a Japanese wheel in the garden there. He was the fellow that built that. So I have a lot of, and he passed on a little bit of talent to me. And I just like doing what I'm doing with these heritage things. I think we have a fairly good engineering team with us, and I think there's no boathouse on the site down there and there's a bridge down there that I think we have to do something with. We need to have some reverberation done to that bridge, and I'd like to send the engineering team to look at it just to see what we can do to try and help that out. So we're in the process of moving forward right away to get this roof on the building and to get the input we need to make it all work. And I'm just waiting for my good friend, the building inspector over there, to issue me a building permit, which I hope will happen tomorrow or the next day. But we're getting very close. So it's been a challenge and we've enjoyed it. We're pleased to be working with you. So I'll just leave it with that. If anybody's got any questions, fire them at me.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Oh, yes, Councillor Olson. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just in response to the previous question about the timeline too, it's probably also worth mentioning that as part of the agreement, the heritage building has to be moved to the satisfaction of the city of Colwood and the heritage consultant prior to occupancy of the new construction. So also worth mentioning as far as timeline goes.
Not a question, just a comment. I was just going to say that I really appreciate that you're taking the time with this project and that we're not rushing through it, and that you're taking a lot of care and attention with this little treasure. And I love the fact that you have a bit of a personal connection. So that makes, I know me personally, just feel good to know that it's being cared for. So I really appreciate the careful work that you guys have done in moving this heritage structure. It's greatly appreciated. So I look forward to seeing it come together.
Yeah, well, I think it's good for the municipality. It's good for us too. I think we have something that we can sort of present to the public, and it's that little park that they have there. I just don't know how it's going to be finished with yet, but there's no more horse and buggies around, but it's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine it's going to be open somehow. We got to find a way of letting people get into it. It's something similar to rural roads, and when you look at it that way, maybe not to the same extent as the castle down there, but I think it's a heritage issue, and it's something the public should see.
I very much look forward to, down the road in the future, sharing that property as like an educational piece in Colwood. So yeah, it is definitely a great treasure for us. So thank you.
There's one other thing that I would just like to say, and I don't know how we can make this work, but I think there's going to be a challenge trying to find ways of financing these projects that you're looking at. And I'm interested in heritage work, and what I'd like to do is find some way of maybe buying a couple of cars for the Heritage Committee, and they can maybe have a little office there where we are, wherever they are, so they can find a way of generating some revenue for themselves, so they can sort of sustain what they're trying to do. I think you got to think outside of the box of trying to find ways to making this all happen. Money doesn't grow on trees, and I think if I can help that way, we will. So that's what I was trying to do. Is if we got 200 units in that building there, first 100 are rental. So we're looking at electric cars and putting in the facility so they can recharge. And I think if somebody like that, the Heritage Committee needed to generate a little bit of revenue, I'll participate and help them in some way. So I leave that with you too.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dam, are you finished with your presentation as well? Are there any further questions about this presentation? Thank you very much. The next on the agenda, are we just receiving that for information? Iain?
That is correct, yes.
So the next thing on the agenda is Iain Bourhill, update on engagement with local First Nations.
Just a note to the chair for myself.
Yes.
We didn't, those of us joining you on Zoom, Jeff, Josh and I, and Councillor Day, and I guess Desiree Gevins, we know who we are. We can see each other's references, but unfortunately with the camera set up currently at the Colwood City Chambers, we can only see the speaker at the microphone there, or whoever is having their mic activated. We don't know who is actually in attendance at the meeting right now. There was no roll call or reference to that. So would it be okay if we just learn who's there at the meeting that we can't see? We hear voices that somehow are disembodied, so we'd appreciate being looped in.
Are you referring to the commission members, Mark?
Yeah, those who are in attendance in the room that we're not, that's all. Just we don't know who's there.
Well, I'm here. Sandra Hudson.
Thank you, Sandra.
To my left is Jenny Seaman, Councillor Missy Olson, Don Lavelle, Iain Bourhill from the city, and I'm sorry, I don't know.
Sorry, I should have introduced myself, Madam Chair. Byron Grant, Manager of Building and Bylaw.
Byron, thank you.
And the two speakers are in the audience. Councillor.
I'm also attending remotely. Sorry, it's Councillor Cynthia Day.
Thank you, Cynthia. We can see you on the screen, Cynthia. You're identified, but with the way the cameras are set up, it only tells us who's ever speaking. We can see them. So,
Councillor Grove is also in the
excellent.
audience, and there's
Excellent.
other staff members. And I'm sorry, I don't know your names.
He worked for me about 50 years ago, and he's back on payroll. He's helping us up there. We have engineering work.
Those of us on Zoom can't hear your speaker.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Day. Can you come to the podium and say that? Thank you. Yep.
Like that? Red, you can speak. But I just like to introduce George Banning. He's a member of the team, and he was one of the guys I mentioned that had gray hair, and he's He's right behind me. I don't know if anybody knows him or not. Can you see him?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. I'm sorry we didn't do that earlier. I apologize.
We're all learning this together. So
Iain Bourhill from the city, would you like to do your report now?
Thank you. Yes, just a quick update with respect to our recent outreach with the COSAPSM and Songhees Nations. So the city has agreed to partner with 2 projects involving the Songhees Nation that have relevance to heritage in the community. The first is a application to the Heritage Legacy Fund that the Songhees is making with the city support that would allow for additional monies to supplement the $40,000 that the city obtained through a Time and Memorial Fund grant. Those monies would be combined with the new application of $50,000 if successful to support the conservation of intangible heritage within the Songhees Nation. We're hoping to provide more information on this project soon. It is one that is involving the collection of traditional knowledge from the Songhees Nation with leadership from their nation. And it would be revolving around the naming and traditional understandings around some of the archaeological items that have been discovered in the area. So don't have a lot of details yet, but hoping to report back to the commission soon, and hopefully with a successful second grant application. The next one is another application to the First Peoples Cultural Council Heritage Stewardship Grant, their climate change stream. This is an application that Songhees Nation has made for funding with the support of the city of Colwood through a commitment of $10,000 in-kind funding that would be associated with their waterfront stewardship plan. The project would see the development of strategies and plans to mitigate the impact of sea level rise and storm activity to coastal archaeological sites. So once again, hoping to come back to the Heritage Commission with more information on that project, but we're really excited to have those 2 projects and applications underway in partnership with the Songhees Nation.
a question for Iain.
Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. I just, if you're able to take questions, just Iain, just a clarification. I think I understood that of the 2 grants, one was about archaeological items, looking to give them qualified timelines and proper cultural names and so forth. Is that for artifacts that have been found and are held within the city of Colwood?
Thank you for that question through the chair. No, they would be items that are either held by the Songhees or within their repositories, the provincial government, whatnot. I'm currently not aware of any archaeological items that in the city's possession.
And then just to follow up to that question, then then the next grant was around coastal restorations vis-a-vis sea level rise. Would those be coastal archaeological sites in the city of Colwood specifically?
Through the chair, yes, that our understanding is that the focus would be on sites in Colwood. However, we wouldn't necessarily limit our support based on Songhees Nation's wishes. But as we've discussed it, our understanding is the focus is on sites in Colwood.
Okay, fair enough. And you referenced the First Peoples Cultural Council. Does the rest of the committee or Heritage Commission understand who they are and what they do? Well, we've used them before, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing some nodding, Madam Chair, but
Is there anybody who would like that explained to them? I think we're all good, but thank you for raising that.
So furthermore, the city has been in discussion with Songhees Nation relative to our Indigenous Protocols and Agreements project. We're hoping to be able to announce the results of work on a memorandum of understanding with the Songhees Nation. That is something that our current council has made a priority, and we're hoping that we'll soon be able to share information on that. I can say there's been a lot of work behind the scenes between city and Songhees Nation's staff. We have also brought forward a contribution agreement in draft form to the Kasapsan Nation for a starting point on as to how we could better support collaboration with that nation. Waiting to hear back from them on that, but hoping that it's a good next foundation for discussions around support from the city to the referral process and collaboration with the Kasapsan Nation. That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
A question for
Questions?
Iain. Jeff and I have a question.
Jeff?
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair. Iain, thanks for that presentation. That was great to hear those good things that are that you're involved with for Colwood. I'm just wondering what happened to the heritage plan, because I know there was a lot of discussion in there regarding the relationship between City of Colwood and First Nations. So it seemed to, I mean, we haven't had very many meetings over the past, say, year and a half or so. I'm just wondering if that plan was carried on to the council and was passed, or what happened to it, and if that is helping you with this work.
Great question. Thank you, through the chair. I think I touched on it at the last commission meeting, but you know, it's something that through discussions with both the Kasapsan and Songhees nations was understood to be an item that we would get to once more foundational relationship building was accomplished. With the previous chief and council at the Kasapsan Nation, they did give the green light for us to work with representatives of their nation to develop understanding of their needs and how we could support heritage conservation through the strategy. However, it was felt that we needed to hit pause on that work while we were doing the relationship building with the Songhees Nation. Some of the folks that identified as wanting to be involved identified as both being members of the Esquimalt and Songhees communities. And that was one of the big reasons why we felt we needed to do the work that the Songhees Nation asked for before proceeding. With the recent discussions around a memorandum of understanding and other similar priorities for the Songhees, such as the two projects I just mentioned, the hope is that we could then move on to engagement on the draft heritage strategy. It has not yet been to Colwood Council. It's as far as it got is to the Heritage Commission, and then we've paused work pending this work with the local nations.
That's good news, actually. I think like the plan really needed some work, and it seemed that yeah, this it was. I'm happy for that decision that you made to set it aside while you worked on relations. That's a good move, I think.
Thank you. Are there any, Mark, did you have a question?
Yes, thanks. Just a clarification, and I just want to commend the chair for including the acknowledgement to the traditional territories and to the recognition that the city of Colwood is now using Kasapsan as the appropriate name for the people who have been previously called the Esquimalt people. Kasapsan is their traditional name, and then in a lot of cases hasn't been lost to them in their own practices. They're bringing it back into their daily use now, which is empowering them and liberating them somewhat. But yes, just for those who are the commission who may or not know, Kasapsan and the Esquimalt Nation are the same place, but Kasapsan is the traditional name of the people who resided along the Gorge waterway traditionally. So happy to hear we're including them. Thanks, Iain, and thanks to the chair.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? As far as I know, that's our entire agenda. Was there anything Yes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so Mr. McLaren and Mr. Dam have been good enough to offer a tour of the Colwood Dairy and Cheese House site immediately following this meeting. So if anyone's interested, we'll probably be leaving in a few minutes.
Great, wait for it. Watch for the wind.
Does anybody online have any further comments before we finish the meeting? And we, I think that we're done then. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Jenny? Second by Councillor Olson. All in favor? Thank you very much, everybody.